Hello, everyone. Welcome to another session with Jamila. Yay! Oh my gosh, Jamila's not sick and tired of me yet, thankfully. Um, and I'm really appreciative of Jamila coming on again and, giving us her wisdom. Hello, Jamila. Welcome back.
Hey, how are y'all doing?
Nice to have you. Nice to see your face. And the reason I wanted to bring Jamila back, not only because I love talking to her on this, and I know all of you love her too. We love your face, we love your energy, we love your laugh, your giggle. I know a lot of people are like, I love her giggle. But I recently had an incident, a very typical INFJ incident that I dealt with, and I was like, you know what, this is so typical, and I have this pattern of behavior that I always follow. That I always end up doing the same thing with these people who cross my boundary, and I always end up dealing with the same kind of situation because I don't deal with it properly. I basically just run away instead of actually having a conversation, actually telling the person, I'm sorry, but I didn't like what you did. Can you not do that again? You know, it's such a simple thing to say right now. But when it actually comes to it, I'm sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, can I say it? What if, I'm a terrible person? I can't believe I'm so picky, blah, blah, blah. And so I kind of started ruminating in my head, and I don't actually say it out loud. But recently, this person did step over my boundary, and instead of running away, which is usually what I would be like, okay, I'm just going to block this person. I'm going to pretend like they don't exist. If I see them on the street, I'm going to go in the other direction. I'm going to put on a hat and pretend like I don't speak English. All that. But
wow.
I wouldn't do that. And I was like, I don't want to do this again. I'm almost 40. This is not how I want to live the rest of my life. Really, if I'm 40 and I'm still doing these nonsensical things, I should be ashamed of myself. So I was like, all right, let's try a different strategy. And so I actually, first of all, I actually messaged Jamila and I was like, hey, what do you think about the situation? Am I being crazy? Am I being too picky about things? Because also that's something I'm like, maybe I'm being like very too picky, and maybe I'm just an idiot and I don't see things properly. And then Jamila confirmed that, yes, you're not being picky. This is actually a problem and you're actually, right to get angry about it. So I was like, all right, that's good. Because I do trust Jamila's judgment. She might like me as a person, but she will be objective about things. She won't be like, oh, Boom's cool, so everything that she does is cool. Unlike some other people I know who are my fans, and I like that they care about me and they want to be on my side. But I know Jamila won't do that. And so, of course, I asked her for advice, and she gave me such brilliant advice that I was like, oh my, this has to be recorded for an eternity for all INFJs from now on till the end of time, until YouTube exists, for them to watch so that we can learn from this. And so I'm grateful that it's late for Jamila again. It's like 10 p.m. or something.
Yeah,
almost
it's
10:30.
not bad.
You wake up at 5. I don't know how you do this. You're like a robot.
Well, I wake up at 4:15, but yeah.
Oh gosh, you're crazy. So anyways, I wanted to invite Jamila on, and I'm going to give the reins over to you. I'm going to let you tell us everything that you know about the subject.
Okay, so yeah, Boom, when I heard from you and you described the scenario, even I was kind of getting angry, like, no, this is not right, what's happening? Because I remember your question was, am I seeing this wrong? Is this my fault? Did I bring it on myself? Which I thought was an interesting, typical INFJ question. Yes. So I said, okay, no. Now, so I think where I started, and just correct me where I'm wrong, I think where I started was first, of course, reaffirming that, when you're a kind person, when you're kind, you're going to be vulnerable to people who want to take advantage of that kindness, consciously or unconsciously. So the answer isn't stop being kind, or whatever, there's nothing wrong with being a kind person. There's nothing wrong with wanting to help because it's coming from a good place. And I think because this person was a friend and you're very excited about the friendship, and anytime someone becomes important or there's a brand new, shiny new person in your life and you really want to let them know that they're important to you, then being helpful, jumping in, alleviating burdens, that's what you want to do. Yes. Unfortunately, they're not everybody is built to have their burdens relieved. And everyone, and I think that's what I told you, that everybody has to walk through their own experiences sometimes. And so when it's been my experience that when people kind of vent about the things that they need or what they want or what's making them uncomfortable, if you sit back and let them keep talking, eventually they will either work it out for themselves what they want to do and they're just talking through it, or they will legitimately ask you specifically, hey, can you help me with this? And in which case that is a great time, that's an obvious time to say, okay, now I can jump in, versus assuming, oh, well, I know how to solve this problem, so I'm just going to go and solve it for you, which people will let you do. So that's the other bad thing. People will let you do it. So it's not like someone's going to stop you and say, no, I want to have my own growth experience, and you get out of the way. You're messing with my growth. No one's going to say that. No one's going to say that. So people won't stop you. And that's kind of the other unfortunate part. If you offer, people will take it. People will take it. So within yourself, kind of learning how to hold the reins for yourself and let the whole story play out with that individual, and trust that they are smart enough and adult enough that if they need your help specifically, they will say so. We do have some manipulators out there, in which case you really want to make them wait. You really want, because I have been around people who hint very heavily that they want you to jump in. They hint I don't know how I'm going to solve this problem. Oh, I've been dealing with this for 3 days.
Oh my gosh.
And they're just so dramatic and they get the vapors and everything. And they really want, because I have sat, and I'm terrible for doing this because I love observing people. I have sat and just counted in my head, how many minutes are they going to put on this show?
Oh my gosh, you're so funny.
Before they literally ask the question, because I'm like, yeah, that sounds really bad.
Oh gosh.
That sounds, oh my gosh, how are you alive right now? And because you need to be adult enough to ask for the help versus trying to manipulate me into offering help. So let the person ask the question, even if they look like they're struggling with the concept of asking. That's a growth experience in itself.
True.
Learning how to ask, when you can't get something accomplished, that's its own growth experience. So let the person ask you outright. It's gonna tear you up inside. I'm just gonna go ahead and give you that fair warning. It's gonna tear you up inside, because you're gonna be like, but I know the answer. But I know exactly, we could get this done in 5 minutes. You don't have to suffer for days and days. Just let me take over for 5 minutes, and I'm telling you, the whole problem will be solved. So it's going to eat you up inside. Because you really want to just, but it never works. It never, you can give them the perfect solution. You gave that person the perfect solution in the moment.
Yes.
And it literally didn't pan out. So I can't tell you how many times I have thought I was doing someone a favor by jumping in, by solving the problem, and it never worked out. There have been times where I've put money in. People I had a really close friend of mine who was talking about how she, bills are running really tight. And I think we had gone out for coffee, and she was like trying to pay for her coffee with change. And I'm just like, what are you doing? So at the time, I was a student. I was a grad student. And I was receiving, your loan, your refund checks or whatever. And I gave her a portion of that. Now, mind you, this is even my money. I gave her a portion, right? I gave her a portion of that, like, here you go, and because in my head, I'm going to help her pay a bill. There was some bill that she was complaining about. I'm going to help her pay this bill. Here you go. Absolutely. You're my great friend. She went out and bought carpet.
Oh, gosh.
And look, oh no, it's even better. She bought carpet for an apartment
Oh
that
my
they
God,
don't
I want to kill
own.
someone.
It wasn't even for a home that they own. She
What?
bought carpet, right? She bought carpet. She and well, I don't want to say too many details. I doubt if she'll see this.
Right.
But either way,
Right.
she and her husband at the time, they were in base housing. So it's not even your
Oh no.
place. So you took the money that I gave you and you
Oh shit.
purchased carpet for a place that you can't pull the carpet back up and take it with you.
Oh
Why would
no.
you reupholster a place that's not yours?
Oh
You're going
my
to be
God.
leaving here in a year or 2 years or whatever the length of time. Right. But I couldn't say anything, could I?
No,
Because as soon
no.
as I released the money, it's not mine anymore. And
Yes.
she made her own adult decision because it turns out she had figured out how to pay that bill that she was
Oh
complaining
my
about.
God.
And so rather than stop me and say, oh no, I don't need it, keep it, I'm
Wow.
good. Rather than stop me, she took the money
Uh-huh.
and she
Uh-huh.
used it for
Wow.
whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever, right. And I'm a student. And she knows I'm a student. And she knows I don't have a job. And she knows, you know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm
Yes.
talking about is when you extend your kindness, people are going to take it. They are not going to stop you.
Yes.
And when you don't think about what's really going on, when you forget that you're dealing with a fellow adult or you're dealing with someone who is also as intelligent as you are, you're going to make
Right.
stupid decisions like that. There are 100 things I could have done with that money. Oh, and my daughter at the time was a toddler. So
Oh
there's 100 things
no.
I could have. Exactly. Now that's my stupidity. I have to take responsibility for that, right?
Mm,
Because
mm.
I thought I was helping.
Yes.
I did not assess the situation fully. I did not take into account her husband's working. She's married. She has no kids. They're even if they're eating bologna and cereal for a week, they're gonna make it,
Yes.
you know? And I'm the one that's over here, single parent,
Oh
student,
God.
still living with my parents. But
Yes. Oh no.
yes, but I thought I had the better idea. That
Wow.
yeah, no,
Yeah. Yeah.
never
Yeah.
again. That was an expensive lesson, but it was a lesson,
Yes. Yes.
so yeah, keep in mind that what I have learned is that whatever story you're being told is never the whole story.
Right.
It's not every single detail, it's not every single thought. They're not lying, it's
Yes.
just not
Yes.
the whole story. They're just being emotional,
Right.
and after they vent and they go home, they'll solve the problem.
Right.
And it probably won't even be a topic tomorrow. And you'll be still thinking like, well, what happened? And they're like, what? I
Yes.
paid the bill, what? You know?
Yes. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so yeah, so that's why I really
Wow.
learned how to step back because it's expensive to you.
Hmm.
And you can't blame anybody but yourself. Like I hate you
Yes.
right now. But you can't blame anybody. So yeah, I think I told you kind of the best way to psychologically trick
Mhm.
yourself into feeling like you've been helpful is
Yes.
to be more about offering guidance,
Yeah.
offering advice, which is free. And if they take it or leave it, you've offered it, you
Yes.
know. So identifying resources. Oh, you want to do you want something? Well, here you can go over here. This is where I've gone.
Hmm.
Things are reasonably priced, or this is free information that I know.
Yes.
And you've helped.
Hmm.
You have helped. And whether or not they take your advice, of course, is up to them.
Yeah.
But at least you've offered something versus kind of sitting and stewing and feeling like you've not done anything. So that's
Yes.
a nice free way of helping without sacrificing.
Yes.
you know
Absolutely.
um Now I think I did make the point that of course in an emergent situation
Hmm.
or something where you really do need to jump in and
Hmm.
kind of save the day, then
Yeah.
yeah, do that.
Hmm.
But yeah, situations like that, try to you know guidance is best.
Yeah.
Offering guidance or um uh yeah, some form of advice. I did mention, I think when I talked to you, I mentioned like lending for a temporary amount of time, but
Mm.
even that can kind of bite you a little bit because, like I said, when you lend anything that you release out of your hands, is literally out of your hands.
Yes.
So if you're going to lend, then let it be something that's not precious to you.
Yeah.
you know,
Yes.
I mean, I'm just saying anything like if I lend money, then I need to prepare myself that I may not get it back.
Yes.
And so if I know that I'm in a position where I need it back by a certain date, by, whatever, then I'm not going to lend it, because invariably something is going to happen where the money's either not going to be given back at all, or it's not going to be given back on time. And I'm going to be in a certain negative situation. So rather than be upset and go through that stress, if I know that I cannot legitimately give it up, then I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'll offer whatever advice I can offer, and I know that almost kind of sounds like, well, you're not doing enough. But again, it's an adult who needs to learn. We grow in adversity.
Yeah.
And we all get presented with challenges, just like you learned everything that you learned through a series of challenges that you experienced in your life that nobody stepped in and took over for you. That other person needs to grow on their own as well. I think I told you the story of the butterfly and the chrysalis, and I think a lot of people know this story.
Yes, I love that story.
Where there was a butterfly struggling to get out of the chrysalis, and the individual watching the butterfly struggle cut into the chrysalis to, get them to help the butterfly out, help it get out. But the problem is the struggle was what was building its wing strength. And so without the struggle, the wings never formed. Yes. And the butterfly never flew, and it became, easy prey. Yeah. We grow in our struggle, and even though it's hard to watch people that we really care about struggle and strain, but it's for their good, and they need those experiences, because unless you're going to live their lives for them, they need those experiences. Yes. Definitely.
A couple of things that you did say that I really loved that I'm gonna just bring up so that we don't forget about it, is that the levels thing, like level 2 versus level 30. I really love that analogy. And also karma, like really, if you believe it or not, it's literally cause and effect. Life, it's one of the principal universal laws, the law of cause and effect. So, there might be something that they're dealing with because of something that they did in the past, and you don't know, you're kind of interfering with the general course of things. And I would love if you kind of spoke a little bit about these two topics as well.
So definitely the cause and effect. Yeah, you're right. Whenever we step in and we interfere with someone else's lesson, they don't experience the growth that they're supposed to experience. I'm thinking very specifically of a mistake that I recently made, where I stepped in with someone, and again, it involved money, or at least I bought a very expensive item for this person. I see. And they were not at the level that they needed to be to receive the item. So and that's really, and I'm talking about from a spiritual perspective. Now, from a physical perspective, the item I sent them was an item they knew how to use, and they, they wanted it, and they, what have you. However, I'm right now, and again, this is a close friend. This is not a stranger. It's a close friend. But right now, I am watching them walk through a mental health journey that they probably should have been taking before I gave them the item. So the item, when I gave them the item, it prompted them to move forward. They're into a certain type of business, and I bought them an item to help them move forward in the business. So in the excitement of having the item, they moved forward. But were they spiritually prepared to move forward? Did they have all of the pieces in place? No. And they became overwhelmed. And so now they've taken a step back to kind of walk the journey that they probably should have walked the entire time, in which case I never would have even been involved in purchasing items for them to begin with. That would have been part of their journey as well. And so when I first saw them taking the step back, I was very frustrated. I was very angry, because I'm like, I invested money. But then I realized, no, wait, this is my fault.
Yes,
You
yes.
know, I introduced an extra element that I had no business introducing.
Right, right.
It wasn't my decision to make. I was not called upon to be a part of whatever was going on in the moment. I just, in my own wisdom,
Uh-huh.
unfortunately, I just
Yes.
I just added myself to the mix and basically handicapped her, you know,
Yeah.
rather than let her go through her own struggle, you know. So
I
so
would love to
yeah.
add something here, Jamila.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Um,
absolutely, absolutely.
I think everyone knows about these stories of like lottery winners who become
Mhm,
millionaires, like multi-millionaires. They get like $700 million in like a matter of a few days. And all of a sudden we hear stories about them maybe weeks or months later, even sometimes weeks later, where they've lost all the money. Like
mhm, mhm.
millions and millions of dollars came into their hands, and they lost it in a matter of almost seconds, if you think
Absolutely.
about it, if you think about the general scheme of things. And it's
Yeah,
because they just weren't ready for that amount of money,
exactly.
psychologically, physically, mentally, spiritually, whatever it was, however it happened, whatever reason it happened for, they just weren't ready for it. And so really it is about, you become the person first on the inside, and then the money kind of appears. That's why a lot of people on the manifesting journey say, hey, you need to become that person inside. Like before you start
Yes,
saying, I want to become a millionaire, are you ready to have that amount of money? Can you work with
exactly.
it? Are you prepared to hold it? Because most people
Yeah,
are not. So I really want
yeah,
to
I
share
think,
that here.
yeah, absolutely. And actually, money is kind of one of the great amplifiers. Like whoever you
Yes.
are, when
Yes.
you get that money in your hands, it multiplies.
Yes.
So
Yes.
if you were, say, a substance abuser with $700
Mm.
million in your hand, you're
Oof.
not thinking about rehab,
Oh my
right?
gosh. Yes. Yes.
You are having the time of your life, you know?
Wow.
Or if you're poverty minded, like perhaps you came from an unstable situation
Mhm.
where food was never plentiful or housing was unstable, you're going to put all of that money on food. You're going to put
Yes.
all of that, you're going to buy an elaborate home that you probably don't need,
Yes. Yes.
because for you, you haven't worked through, you know, all of the scarring or
Yeah.
you know, everything that you pulled out of that experience. And but now you have money,
Yeah.
and so that money's just going to amplify that poverty minded, and you're going to surround yourself, you know, with all of these temporary things.
Yes.
And yeah, like, yeah, look up and you've spent $700 million on hamburgers, and
Oh my
you
God.
know, or perpetual cookouts, you know,
Yes. Yes.
because that's where your dysfunction is, so to speak. That's where your
Mm-hmm.
weakness is. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
money is a great amplifier of everything that's wrong with us. Yeah.
I love it.
You
I love it.
really have to ground yourself before you get a hold of any kind of
Yes.
any version of prosperity. Any
Yes,
version of
yes,
prosperity. You
absolutely,
really have to be
absolutely. I
prepared for
love that. Ground yourself. Another thing I did want to say is that I've been reading this book recently, and I already kind of mentioned it to you, but I just want to bring
it.
it
Mhm.
up if you don't mind.
Yeah.
It's called The Dance of Anger by Harriet Lerner, and it's really one of the best books I've read about psychology and anger in a long time. Emotionality, basically. And one of the things she mentions over and over again is about over functioning and under functioning.
Hmm.
And INFJs, because a lot of the people listening are INFJs or INFPs or INTJs mostly. Those are the kind of group of people that
Yeah.
listen to these videos. Most INFJs tend to be over functioners. That's how it is. We kind of do more than the people around us. We kind of take care of them by doing more. We are like, all right, I'll cook and I'll clean and I'll do everything, all the household chores, so the other person doesn't have to worry, and they sit at their video games and they just relax, and then we get resentful, of course.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah.
And so we overfunction, and that's what we're doing with a lot of these things where we're helping people, is that we're overfunctioning, and then as a result of that, the other person ends up underfunctioning, because that's how
Yeah.
the world works. It's about balance. It's not going to be like we're going to be overfunctioning and they're going to be overfunctioning. It's very rare that happens that way. So basically what, again, you're doing is that you're allowing them to underfunction. You're going to get resentful about it, of course, but you're allowing this person to not get the lessons, not learn, not grow, not any of that. And you are actually causing it to happen. You're thinking you're helping them. No, you're not.
Yeah.
You're actually hindering them. You're becoming their crutch. You're becoming their wheelchair. And they're actually going to be like, mentally and physically not challenged because of this, because they're gonna be like, well, I don't have to do anything. I'm just gonna sit on my butt and not do anything. And they'll watch
Yeah.
you work like a crazy dog and burn yourself out, because people do that, you know, that you, if you allow it, they're going to do it. Of course, I would do the same thing. Well, maybe not, but you know, I'm sure I would try to, I don't know if I would do it. Anyways, so I wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, because yeah, when you step in and you end up burning out, or in the case of another example with me, when you figure out, okay, I'm doing too much, and then you want the person to pick up and take over, and you want to kind of restart the lesson and be like, okay, let me be the guide this time versus the one who took over.
Yes.
They're actually very resentful. They're very resentful. And you would, because, you know, and I think none of us likes to be uncomfortable.
Of course.
None of us likes, you know, but this is the way we learn, because nobody's going to come out of their comfort and say, wow, this is really comfortable, I feel like learning a new lesson. No, we get pushed into these lessons with our discomfort. So and nobody likes it, even though it works out for us in the end, nobody likes it. So in the situation where you've taken over, but you're like, you know what, I'm doing too much, and you try to go back and start that person at step one, they're going to be so angry with you.
Yes.
Now, for someone like me, I don't care if you're mad, but you're probably going to care.
Yes.
So in a situation like that, you really, one, you have to mentally prepare yourself as the person who's getting ready to start your friend over.
Yes.
Mentally prepare yourself that it's gonna be like dragging a kid to the dentist. It's gonna be tough. They're gonna be angry. They're gonna question your loyalty or your personality or whatever else, when really you're just saying, hey, I probably never should have taken over. And I think that's where getting brave enough to have that candid conversation is a place where you can step in and say, hey, look, I know I'm doing too much. I know that your arms and legs and your brain work. And I shouldn't have to, if you've been home all day and I've been out working, I shouldn't have to come home and cook as well. You know, you could do something too, you know, so like, let's kind of reset this. But yeah, it's challenging, but it's worth it. I'll say that.
It's such a difficult conversation for INFJs to have, though. I mean, you're an INTJ, so obviously you're like, hey, obviously, yeah, I'm going to have this conversation. Maybe you're like that, but for INFJs, it's like literally we jump off a cliff before we have this conversation. We'll be like, all right, there's a cliff, I'm jumping off there, rather than, you know, sitting down and being like, hey, I'm feeling taken advantage of, you know, I don't like it. I mean, I want this to be a little bit more of a balanced relationship. And so I know it's difficult, and I'm saying that, and I'm like much older than a lot of the INFJs listening. So obviously, if I'm even saying it at my age, you must be like, wow, even like teenagers or people who are younger as an INFJ, they must be struggling really a lot. But it really is one of those lessons that we need to learn as an INFJ. Yes, we're brilliant in so many other ways, but it's really one of our Achilles heels. It's like one of those things that really breaks us down. It's the reason why we don't achieve more with our lives either, because we end up doing all these things for other people, taking care of their goals, taking care of them, instead of being like, okay, what do I really want to do with my life? What do I want to focus my energy on? What do I want to focus my light on? You know, all of the stuff, the gifts that I've been given as an INFJ, what do I want to use it for? You know, and yes, it's a little bit selfish, if you want to use that word, because a lot of people will be like, it's so selfish. No, it's not selfish.
No,
but a lot of people are going to say that to you. Get over it. You know, I've been called selfish a billion times already, like a trillion times. Actually, I get it in messages every single day from trolls and from my mother. but it's something that you have to get used to, for God's sake. You know, like really, what's the worst thing that could be? You know.
Well, think about it. On an airplane, what do they
do?
If a plane starts to go down, what's the first thing you're supposed to do? Put the oxygen mask on yourself and then help someone else. So if you're not self-actualized, if you're not strong, if you're not growing, then you're not going to be able to help anyone, at least not effectively. You might be able to help on those lower levels that you've already achieved, but you also have to keep growing and learning and expanding, so that when those moments come that you could offer the guidance, you've actually had the experience to offer. But if someone tries to keep you pressed down, you're going to be ineffective. Like I said, if you decide I'm going to sacrifice myself and put the oxygen masks on all the kids,
Oh
you'll get
God.
one kid and then you're passing out. And then you're worth, I mean, think about it.
Yes.
Because
Yes. Yes.
like if I were on a plane going down, my first instinct would be, let me put my mask on my child first.
Of
Yeah,
course.
I've got less than 5 seconds that I'm passing out.
Yeah.
And then if she's waiting on me to do this mask, well, then we're both sunk. Let me get it first,
yes.
so that my mind is clear, because I know what to do. So then I can help the person who doesn't quite know what to do. But I've got to take care of myself first in order to do that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. The imagery is so clear, like INFJs are basically dying off,
Yeah.
because they're not taking care of themselves. And like people around them are dying as well. But if we took care of ourselves, we could literally be taking care of our entire community as well, on top of taking care of ourselves,
Yeah.
It's such a brilliant way to look at it. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. I need you to do me a favor. I need you to remind me the levels, because I'm sitting here thinking like, what did I say? See, that's that 3:45 a.m. wisdom. Like, what did I say?
Yes. Well, I mean, I'm also kind of half remembering, but what I remember is, well, the first level is obviously that you don't help, you don't say anything, you kind of let them do their own thing, obviously. And there's also the fact that you kind of give them guidance. That's another level for sure. We've already spoken about it. But the level that I like the most is that, you kind of step back and you wait for them to ask for your help. And really, like, that's like something that was most important for me to hear from you, is because I am actually pushing my nose into businesses of people that I have no business being in. Like, really, they need to take care of their own shit and I need to take care of my own. And so that was one of the most important things I had to hear, is like, hey, did they ask for your help? No, then what the hell are you doing pushing your butt into things that are not even your business? Like, just step back, Sorry, go on.
Yeah, but I think even with that, that's where I was reassuring you that, INFJs are more demonstrative than verbal.
Yes.
And so you're demonstrating your care by being nosy, by getting so you're not just being some know-it-all.
Yes.
Trying to save everything, like, oh, you don't know what you're doing, get out the way. You're not doing that. You're legitimately saying, I care about you. I care that you're suffering. I don't want you to go through it. You're precious to me. So I want to come and help and take over if need be, but I want to alleviate your suffering. I mean, so that's, I imagine that's literally the message so that's your justification for jumping in. And the only reason why I bring it up is because that's so natural. That's a natural selflessness that people have, and that's not a bad thing. The selflessness is not bad. The execution is where you mess up a little bit, because you can be helpful, but without taking over the whole thing. You can offer some guidance, or like I think about just me as a therapist. A good therapist listens more than they talk.
Yes.
A good therapist, if someone is telling me their whole slew of problems, in my head, I might have the perfect answer to settle all of that.
Yes.
But I'm not sharing it because I need to know where that other person is in their development. Because again, I'm thinking on, master's degree level solution.
Yes.
And this person is still in high school. They're still, So I've got to hold back and understand where they are. What are you asking me? Now, the funny thing about keeping a poker face when you're a therapist, because when you know what will totally solve it.
Yes.
And they ask what you think is the wrong question. They ask the wrong. They could be dealing with abuse and the kids aren't acting right and there's not enough food and there's not enough money. But the real question is, do you think I'll find a man if he finds out that I have a mental health diagnosis? Yes, no. I remember I worked in a psychiatric hospital. I'm dealing with a person who is sitting in a psychiatric hospital that I'm counseling. Their lives are in shambles. Clearly, they needed to be there for safety's sake.
Yes.
They've got kids, they've got bills, they've got all these things going on in their lives. But the thing that was important to them in the moment was being able to secure a relationship. And that is important. That is definitely important. But that's where their mind was. So even though I had all kinds of answers for every other thing and all kinds of resources for every other thing in their lives, their mind is on this thing. So I have to stay where they are.
Oh, wow.
And so I can't jump ahead of them and say, oh, forget about a man. You need this for your money and you need this for your kids. And they won't hear me.
Right.
They won't hear me. And then I'll look like a know-it-all who's trying to take over.
Yeah.
But rather I have to be like, okay, well then let's talk about what are your concerns when it comes to dating. Are you concerned about how people perceive you? Will they see the real you? Will they, do you divulge your mental health diagnosis? When do you divulge it? Do you have triggers that maybe people should be aware of without telling them about the diagnosis? Like I have to help them fill in the cracks for where they are.
Wow.
And then once they get those answers, or once they're able to process and come up with a plan that they're okay with, then we can talk about the kids. Then we can talk about, so you gotta go with where they are, versus where you wish they were, but and so that's how you have to treat people. Just meet them where they are. It's frustrating, but it's easier.
No, it's such a good point that you make, because I think I've shared this story before where, I was handed the book by Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, when I was 21 years old. Someone gave it to me and I read it, and it was literally like it was written in Turkish. I had no idea. I was like, what is this person even talking about? I have no idea. It's obviously a sham. I'm never going to listen to anything he says again. Like all of that stuff came up. Obviously, I was a really egotistical 20. I'm still egotistical, but I was way, way worse when I was back then. And then I was handed the book again when I was 31, 32 years old, and I read it and I was like, wow, my mind was completely blown. I'm like, this is the best thing in the world. I can't believe I didn't understand it before. This is brilliant. I'm going to give it to everyone. I was talking about it for days on end. And so literally it is that, I was not ready to listen to the message or hear it or even bring it into myself at 21, but I was at 32 or whatever age that was. And it took 10 or 12 years to get there. Yeah. So if someone was like, hey, I've given you this book, did you do something with it? And I do the same thing as well with some people. I'm like, I gave you this advice. Have you done anything with it? And we get angry as INFJs, but like, hey, you planted the seed. Maybe it's going somewhere, maybe it's not, but maybe they're not ready for it. Maybe they're just a baby right now in that regard, and they need to grow up. So allow them that time,
Yeah. And I've done the same thing. Like I will read something. I'm constantly reading the Bible because I think, because I grew up that way. So what I understood at age 10, I understood more at age 20, and I understood at age 30, age 40. So it's like every 5 or 10 yeyears, I'll go back and read, and it'll mean something completely different now that I've got certain life experiences behind me now it makes more sense because because as a 10-year-old Bible's black and white, like why would you lie to people? And then as I got older, it's like okay. Yes.
Oh my gosh, I love it. That's brilliant.
So yeah.
Also, the Bible speaks a lot in analogies and in epithets, and like really like it doesn't directly give you the answer, says this is how you should live your life. No, it's like it gives it to you in like different ways of doing. Like everyone could interpret it in a different manner, and that's literally the essential teaching, is that hey, everyone's going to look at a flower and see a different thing. They're going to see a different color, they're going to see a different flower, they're going to see a different interpretation. So really there is no one black and white way of thinking and one black and white way of looking at the world. And that's why I love all religious texts. Not only, of course, I love the Bible, but also I love the Gita. I love, the Quran even like has such brilliance in it, because it's really literally about opening your mind up and saying, okay, I don't know anything. Really, I don't know anything. And God is trying to help me, but really my mind is so closed off with all of this garbage in it that sometimes I can't even see straight, So it literally is, like you said, reading it over and over again to get the lesson.
Yeah, this is why we and I know we all hate this. This is why we never get the whole plan. This is why we only get one
Yes.
step at a time
Yes.
in our
Yes.
lives.
Exactly.
I would love to see the ending. Like, okay, I know what I want to do. Just
Yeah.
shoot me to the ending. And it's
Right.
like, no.
Yeah.
Step one,
Yes. Yes.
calm down. Step two, because
Oh my gosh.
God knows us better than anyone. That
Yes.
He knows exactly where we are. Okay, step
Yes.
one,
Yes.
very tiny step, and we struggle so much with step one. Really, we should understand that we're not ready for whatever step number 987 is. We
Yes.
can't handle step one yet.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah. I would like to add something here, and this is something that I have many arguments with friends and families about. And of course, I'm not saying that I'm an expert in this, but I really do believe for myself in my life,
Mhm.
it has been the case that God has only given me things that I can handle. Like in the moment,
Yes.
He doesn't ever give me more than I can handle. It seems like it's too much, and I'm like, God, what are you doing to me? Do you hate me? But really, like He really, like, and looking back in hindsight, I'm like, wow, that was the perfect lesson, the perfect time, and my perfect level. Really couldn't have been better than that, of course, because it's the universe. Like, it's brilliant, much more
Mhm.
brilliant than we are, billion times more. And so I have arguments with people because they're like, no, that's not true. There are a lot of people suffering on the planet right now, and they're definitely given more than they can handle. And this is false. And basically, you're kind of perpetuating the idea of people deserve what they get and all that stuff, which is not what I'm saying. I'm not saying people deserve what they
No.
get, but it's just that we're given lessons in the level
Yeah.
that it's appropriate for us. And what do you say about that? I know it's a random
Well,
topic to add to this, but
no. Actually, it's right on point, and it adds in because see, the thing is, we tend to romanticize other people. We tend to come
mm,
up with two or three descriptors of that person, and we feel like we know them,
yes, yes,
right?
yes,
So when we say people are suffering, people is too much.
yes,
But okay, we'll take it off of that global generalization and bring it down to the individual.
yes.
What is this individual's suffering?
Mm-hmm.
What are they dealing with? And then and of course we will never know as outsiders, how is that particular experience relevant for that person's growth?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you really bring it down to the individual, and then whatever they're dealing with and whatever their perception is of what they're dealing with, it is tailor made for them.
Mm-hmm.
But us on the outside, we see things in these generalizations. And so we assume that how we feel is how they feel, and
Yes,
how we
yes,
see it is how they see it. And that's
right,
not the case. And so then
right.
it's easy to get into these arguments and to defend people we don't even know. They're abstract, you
Yeah.
know, based on our perception and how we think they should feel and how we think they should take it. But really, when you look at each individual's experience, it is tailor
Mm,
made for that individual, just like yours were tailor made for you. And if someone were to come along and tell you, oh, you shouldn't have had to deal with that, then your answer would be like, but no, but it was perfect, because
yes,
had I
yes,
not dealt with this, I would not have learned how to do this. I would not have gained this. I would have not have developed patience in this. I would not have developed an ability to guide someone else who's getting ready to go through this. You're able to break it down for your individual self, and you would be offended if someone came up to you and said, oh, you never should have. Oh, no, reject it. No, absolutely not. you,
yes,
you know
yes,
yeah, so that's how I see it.
yeah.
Even when things seem to be happening on a well, they are happening on a global scale, but still individuals are experiencing it. And so
Yeah.
for each individual, it means something different, and it is precise to what they need to learn or know
Yes,
for
yes. I
whatever's
really
going to
love
happen
that.
next for them. Yeah.
I love that. That's so brilliant. I do romanticize people, and I do kind of like put them into this box, and I'm like, oh, poor them, and how
Yeah.
woeful they are, and how victim like they are. And on the other end, they're like, I love this. This is awesome. The same
Yeah.
thing if someone looked at me and the life that I lead, they're like, oh my gosh, she lives such a hard life. My mom in particular, she's like, oh my God, you don't have enough clothes. Your clothes are tearing, and you're living in the middle of nowhere by yourself. You're lonely. I'm like, lonely? That word hasn't even come into my dictionary in the past like 20 years. So it's really, really fascinating because we do look at other people in such a different fashion from what they actually are experiencing. So we're actually pretending like we're God, like we know everything, but we don't. We know nothing really. We barely know our own experience. Come on.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I'm gonna kind of like end this here unless you have something else that you wanted to add, Jamila, because I think this has been so brilliant that I want to end at a high note. I really enjoyed this talk. Oh my gosh. I hope everyone actually listens to a big chunk of it so they can get something out of it, because INFJ is really, I know I really needed this. Oh my gosh. And again, thank you so much for spending time with us.
You are welcome. You're welcome. Anytime. Anytime.
And if anyone is waiting, we'll actually be doing another talk. We've already decided on this, Jamila and I will be talking about narcissism and narcissistic relationships. And I know a lot of you are dealing with narcissistic relationships. So if you want, you can stay tuned. Maybe next week or the week after, depending on how things work out, I'll be scheduling it out. So hopefully you guys will enjoy that and learn a lot from it. I'm really looking forward to it. Oh my gosh, I have so much to learn on that.
Yeah. I'm going to come from, and I tend to do this, I'm going to come from a completely different angle than probably what you've heard to kind of give you a different idea of what narcissists are actually going through when they do what they do.
Yes, which I'm really excited about. Yeah, because I think it'll be a more objective view and not like, oh my gosh, they're terrible and they're like a bane of society and that they should be banned from the world, because that's how we look at it sometimes. And I'm like, right, they're not that bad. Yes, they can be a little bit harsh, but come on. So yeah, thank you so much for listening, everyone, for subscribing, for being on my channel. I really appreciate it. And I shall see you next time. Bye.